Welcome to another edition of Nexus Connexus. Today, this episode has a little bit more of a somber tone because I'm going to be speaking with Sara White. Sara is the widow of Reggie White, who passed away in December 2004 because of complications related to sleep apnea. Many of you might know Reggie as the Minister of Defense. He's one of the greatest defensive football players in history. He played for 15 seasons. He was in 13 Pro Bowls, had 198 sacks. He was a force to be reckoned with. And unfortunately, sleep apnea was something he struggled with for much of his career. Because of sleep apnea, he ended up passing away. And Sara's going to talk with us about that story and why she has become an outspoken advocate around the treatment of sleep apnea. Well, welcome back to another edition of Nexus Connexus. Today, I have a very special guest with me, Sara White. Sara and I have been chatting over the past couple of weeks, and I asked her to come onto the show to talk about her story and how sleep apnea has affected her and her family. If you're not familiar, her husband, Reggie White, passed away back in 2004, and he suffered with sleep apnea. And it's made a huge impact in her life, and I think his story resonated with so many people around the world when he passed. Sara, thank you so much for being here with me today. It's been such a pleasure to get to know you over the last couple of weeks. And I really enjoy spending some time with you. And I'm really interested in hearing about your story and how you've been affected by sleep apnea in your family.
Thanks, Derrick. It's been very good getting to know you as well. And Nexus is pretty good that you're working with Nexus.
Yeah.
And just sharing the word. So it's so many people have known Reggie White as the football player, as the minister. And like you said, in December of 2004, he passed away, and sleep apnea was one of the causes, along with the sarcoidosis, that pretty much gave him heart failure. And if anybody knew Reggie was very and fit, and he ate healthy, and he did everything right. And it was something that he couldn't control it. You don't know when, of course, in the word, it says you don't know when. We don't know when things are going to happen. And I think if we did, we wouldn't be living by faith and wouldn't be obedient. But I want to tell you that because Reggie, our family, has been transparent for so long, working in the ministry and working in the NFL and the USFL first, they knew our life. And after he passed, I just felt like this would not be in vain. And like so many other things, if you continue to shout it out to the world, one person may listen, one person may hear, one life may be saved. Well, ultimately, Reggie's sleep apnea, and because I was transparent and because he got a lot of media attention because of his death, so many wives, interesting enough, I don't know why, men don't like to go to the doctors. I don't know why.
True. I resemble that remark.
So these women are pouring their hearts out like they just won, like I just gave them the lottery. And that lottery was life with their husband because they went and took a sleep test. And many of them had sleep apnea. And I don't know, it doesn't matter what age you are, because if you snore and it bothers the next person, right? Yes. And they would often say their husband snores. And I would say, that's an indication. That's one indication. It may not be, but that's a good indication to get tested. Well, so as the time went on and the letters came, not emails, because, emails weren't really that popular.
That thing back in 2004. Yeah, it's
right.
True.
I got mail from the Eagles office. They would forward to me, and Sherry Shodis, who's with the Green Bay Packers, she would forward me mail. And it was very it was solemn. It was interesting, and I know some of those women were surprised that I actually reached back out to them. But one thing was in common. The first thing was Reggie, like so many times in his life, he took the charge, and he is not even here. He took the charge to change people. Can you imagine that? Not being around, but you're still making changes, Derrick.
I mean, the legacy that he brought not only to the sport of football, but I think to the awareness of things like sleep apnea. I think I was first diagnosed with sleep apnea around 2004. And I will tell you, who pushed me to go was my wife. And I will tell you that the story of Reggie White was a big influence on that. She's like, this is nothing to be fooled around with. This is a very fit man, that at that point was only maybe 10 years older than me. And she really got on me about it. And I think, to your point, I mean, all things do work for the good, as if you work it that way. And I think that's been the real benefit of you being so open about what happened with Reggie. And I'm sure that it saves lives. And listen, that's why I ask you to be on the show, because we can talk to doctors and we can talk to people who say, oh, I sleep much better right now. But it is important to understand this is a disease that can actually kill you. And if you don't get it treated, you're risking the future with your family. And that is something that none of us want to do. So I really do appreciate you coming on here and talking about this. I know how difficult it is, but it really does help save lives.
Well, the other thing, the people, some of the wives, again, they're happy that their husband now, has a CPap, but they're not being compliant because they're claustrophobic, or they can't, they sleep on their stomach and they have to get used to sleeping on their back. And all I could tell them was stay encouraged, continue to help them, let them know it'll be okay. And I'm thinking, hey, if they can get 2 days out the week, whatever. Yeah. Until, of course, Brett came into my life and told me that there was an alternative to a CPap machine or a VPap machine. It was a dental appliance, and I'm thinking, what do you mean a dental appliance? I was floored. I was floored because I'm thinking, if we would have had the dental appliance, I know Reggie would have been compliant day one, yes. No doubt. But with the CPap, the mask, very difficult to sleep for some people. And some people, it's great. It's awesome. And if you can qualify and get that dental appliance, and it's going to help you stay compliant, then by all means, go and get a certified dentist that can, make you one, and go talk to people about it. So if you're not using your mask, you're not using your CPap machine, just go. There is an alternative way of living, because you got to live. You got to live.
And it's very similar to my story. I was actually relatively high level of compliance when I first got diagnosed. I lost a lot of weight because of that. And then I really didn't need it anymore, as long as I would have kept the weight completely off. But we all know how that is. Or, we've had a couple of glasses of wine and the next thing you know, you're sawing logs. And my wife actually mentioned this to our dentist, and he made a device for me. And it has actually helped. I'm in the process right now of working through the doctors at Nexus to get one that's actually really dialed in based upon my results, not just, hey, this could potentially help you. But it is true. I mean, the compliance piece is really, really difficult for people. And I think it also limits your life. When we did travel, when I was using a CPAP, I just didn't use it. Or if we went camping, or if we went backpacking, or if I was traveling for 2 or 3 nights, I'd pack the CPAP. If I was just going for one night, I'm like, I'm just not going to do it. The dental appliance is the easiest thing in the world. It fits in your pocket. It's in your briefcase. It's so amazing what this can do. This new technology can do.
So I didn't talk to you about this though, Derrick. So, our children, Jeremy and Jacoya, both, they took after their dad in jeans. They're 6'6'3". Yeah. And they both got tested for sleep apnea. Jeremy was snoring and Jeremy was not really sleeping as well. Well, he has mild sleep apnea. He's not really doing anything. But my daughter, she has mild, but she does have a dental appliance. Now, it just happened maybe 3 years for her. If I wouldn't have known about the dental appliance, I don't think the doctor would have said anything. She sought out a doctor that could, give her that referral to get that appliance. So with technology, I think, people, I say, if you're not satisfied with what you have, go out and look. There's something there for everyone, but you got to get treated and you have to stay compliant.
Yeah, you do. And I think you make a really valid point about your daughter. And, I've talked with Lisa Moeller, the CMO here at Nexus. And, here's a situation of a woman who knew she wasn't sleeping well, went to her doctor, and her doctor's like, well, it's hormonal, and just sort of very much dismisses her. And then she goes to another doc, it's just hormonal, and she's like, no, it's something deeper. And she had to really fight to even get a sleep study done. And she had to go to the lab back then and do it that way. But, it was frustrating to hear her story and know that her doctors were super dismissive because she wasn't a 6'3" NFL player looking person. So they were like, well, you can't have sleep apnea. I mean, that's for big guys. And she's sitting there going, I don't know. I'm just not sleeping right. And something is wrong. And my husband is telling me something's wrong. So it's really important for you to be your own advocate. And I hope that through this podcast and web series that people can use this information to be empowered and say, you know what? No, this is my sleep. It's my life. I want the test done, and be a little bit more forceful with their doctor and say, there's solutions out there and you're just not giving them to me. So you got to give me some access here.
So I have another question, Derrick, because I got your ear and I feel like I'm part of the audience. So I have the audience people asking me questions and I'm just going to tell you what they said. They want to know. Perfect. They have children, kindergarten, first grade kids, and they're all over the place. And what? Oh, okay. They want to know, should they put their child on medicine, ADD medicine or Ritalin, or maybe it could be because they're not getting enough sleep and quality sleep.
So true. Dr. Steve Karstensen, one of the experts here at Nexus, we did an episode with him where he talks about, ADHD and understanding that many children that are diagnosed with ADHD likely just have a sleep problem. And they're being treated for, they're treating the symptom with ADHD medication, but in all reality, the kid's just really tired. And listen, Sara, you've experienced that. I've experienced that. Anytime you're really tired, what are the indications? You're cranky, you're miserable, you don't listen well, you can't pay attention, all of the things that we diagnose children with ADHD. And Dr. Karstensen talked about this of, hey, if you've got a child that's on medicine, talk to your dentist, talk to your doctor, ask for a sleep study. What's the worst thing that can happen is they go, nope, that's not it.
So Derrick, here we go. So I know, I'm sorry, and I know you and Dr. Carson are going to have a whole slew of very professional talk, but this is just a mother talking to you.
Yeah,
Derrick,
that's great.
Okay.
Yes.
So when our children were younger and sleep times, right? It's time to go to sleep. And I homeschooled the kids a lot of times. So we kind of veered off sometimes, but what I did every summer before school, because they did go to school during the season. So they went to a traditional school during the season. The summer prior to it, I would let them stay up to see how much sleep they needed and let them wake up. Well, funny thing, my daughter is 2 years younger than my son, and she needed less sleep than him. So they went to bed at the same time forever and ever and ever. It's hilarious because he always says, oh, she was younger and you let her do this, this, and this. There was a method to my madness, right?
Yeah.
And so we didn't have TVs in the room. And back then, of course, we didn't have tablets. I didn't have to worry about that. No phones. Right. But the TV is in the blue light. All that's a distraction for anyone. So if you're not sleeping, check that out first. But I can say as a mother that you're not being too strict, but you have to monitor with your kids how they're sleeping, right? Yeah. And then when their teacher is telling you they're acting out or they can't focus, check their sleep habits, talk to their teachers. So Jeremy, our son, is a kindergarten teacher, and he actually, he won Teacher of the Year for North Carolina Charter School.
Hey, you're bragging him up. This is what mom's supposed to do, right? The camera's on. Do it.
I know. I'm proud of him, but I've learned so much from him as far as teaching the kids. And one of the things is, if these kids are not rested, they are antsy. They can't focus. And it's not the child's fault that they're acting out.
That's right.
It's, of course, the parents, but the parents have to monitor. But it may not even be that. It may be that child needs a sleep test done to make sure that child is sleeping and being all that they can be. Yeah. Sleep is so important. And I'm sorry if I keep going on and on.
No, it's great.
It's so important. And we have to start with our little ones. Start with our little ones. And then as they grow up, they could very well grow out of that sleep apnea, but give them a chance.
So true. And Dr. Steve Carstensen talks about this of, how a lot of this isn't even about obesity in children. It's about the fact that our jaws are forming differently today because the foods we eat today are so different than they were when we were even kids, right? I mean, I remember, we didn't grow up with very much money. When we had meat, it was the toughest meat you could get, right? It was like shoe leather. You were working on that. So your jaw has to form a little bit stronger, right? We were eating a lot more grains and things like that. And we don't do that anymore.
But interesting enough, I read somewhere where children should eat harder food to develop their jaw. Now, I'd like to know what the doc says about that.
He said that he actually said that the faces of people are starting to narrow because we're not doing enough of that difficult eating. I mean, when's the last time a kid was walking around, chewing on, walnuts or something that they found in the woods, or, those kind of things that just doesn't really, or a carrot. I mean, that doesn't really happen anymore. We have a highly processed food system now, and we don't do things like go out and play in the woods. And if you're hungry for lunch, you grab a handful of acorns and some walnuts and some berries and an apple off of a tree, and you eat those things sort of naturally. So because of that, our jaws aren't as thick as they used to be. And so that's no blame to the parent. It just is societal. And I love what you said, because as a mother and as somebody who's been affected by sleep apnea in your life, what did you do? You went and got your kids tested. You insisted, you became that persistent mother that was like, you're going to get sleep tested and there's no choice.
Well, no, not only that. So after I read about, this is like a few months ago, so I have a 5-year-old grandson now. And after I read about eating hard food, I was like, hey, Dax, you want an apple? How about a carrot? He calls me Gigi. No, Gigi.
He's grinding up wheat out there, making him do it. So
I'm going to be the carrot, apple, nuts, or whatever. And I didn't explain everything to Christina, and once she learns, because it's all a process, it's a progressive learning. And I feel like if we can, relate a message, not just to, if that boy, I believe if Dax knew something was good for him, he seriously, I think he understands it, and I think he will eventually get to that point, because that's the way he is. That's the way he's formed. So I really think, I think we just have to, as parents, as grandparents, as aunts and uncles, just take care of each other and just educate the little ones and their parents.
So true. I think it's easy to regret not doing things after the fact. And one of the things that I think with this show, the hope is that anybody that listens to this doesn't have to regret that they find out 10 years from now that their child had sleep apnea and it was untreated for all those years. Because those years are very developmental as well, where you're learning and you're growing, and nobody wants to, see those negative effects.
But speaking of that, is that unfortunately, Reggie was tested, and it wasn't until I started thinking, because it seems like, how 1 year goes into another year.
Yeah.
We were with the Packers when he got, Dr. Gray was the team doctor, and he noticed, I don't know what he noticed, honestly, but he had Reggie take a sleep test, I think at St. Norbert's, found out he had sleep apnea, and then that's when he started. So now if you take it back, so we started working with the USFL, in 1985, 86. Then he started with the Eagles, okay?
Yes.
So and then in 93, we started working with the Packers. So we're talking about from 85 and 95, well, really much all his life. Who knew when he probably had sleep apnea as an adolescent? Who knows?
Yeah.
But think about this. This is, I thought about this. He wasn't diagnosed until 94. And if you look at his record from the time he started, say with University of Tennessee, 1980 to 94, and if he knew he had sleep apnea and he was treated, can you imagine what his numbers would look like? And then even from 94 until retired, 2000, what those numbers would look like.
Yeah.
If he would have complied, if he would have been treated. So you said, 10 years from now, you don't want to regret that you didn't get your child tested, right?
Yeah.
And I look back and I think, wow, if he would have complied and if he was tested early and if he would have complied, and more importantly, the dental appliance was out back then, apparently.
Yeah, they had makeshift ones, right? Yeah.
It wasn't an option. So if we would have had it, think about the difference his body would have had and how strong he would have been. I mean, and not only Reggie, I mean, he was phenomenal, but other people too, other players.
Yeah.
So you think about that is I'm thinking, wow, Reggie was, he was definitely, he was a man. Yeah. And he would have been more if he would have been treated.
Isn't that funny? Because we wonder, I don't think we think about what could have been, right? But you're so right in that you have a world-class athlete, a Hall of Fame level athlete that didn't sleep very well. And to your point, a couple extra hours of sleep a night, what would that have made a difference in his career? I mean, certainly it would have extended his life, let's hope, right? But I think you're right. I mean, what potential are we missing out of because we don't sleep? And I think that's a great place to even start to wrap this up, which is like, if you're thinking about this, if you've been affected by it, if you're wondering about your children or yourself or your spouse, go get tested, because what about the potential of your life? We certainly don't want to lose it, but what accomplishments could you achieve if you get tested and treated much earlier? Sara, thank you so much. This was really great. And thank you all for joining us here on Nexus Connexus. Until next time. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Nexus Connexus. This was a difficult conversation today. Sara has been heavily affected by sleep apnea and the death of her husband, Reggie. And I know that she and I both hope that this story will encourage you to go and get tested. Find out if you've got sleep apnea. You don't want to lose your life because of this disease. And testing is so simple. Treatment is so easy today. It is not like it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. Companies like Nexus Dental Systems have found solutions that work. And it's time for you to get tested. Okay, until next time.
In the human race, and we won't stop dreaming. No, we won't stop dreaming. We won't stop dreaming.